Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining the Nonprofit Learning Lab's free online webinar. You're currently participating in the 3 things to make this Giving Tuesday your best ever. Questions are encouraged throughout the webinar, whether they be content related or technical. In case you can't see, you can't hear, you can type them into the question box as they arise, and they'll be read out by our moderator during the Q&A portion, or if they're technical, I'll address them one-on-one. I will now hand it over to you, Bini.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. My name is Bini Maryles. It's great to be with you today, wherever it is that you may be, to share with you this presentation on the 3 things that will make this year's Giving Tuesday your best ever. Giving Tuesday is on everyone's mind. It's a little bit of more than a month away. People have done it before, people have done it better, people have done it worse, and there are always new organizations that are coming into the fold that potentially are looking at Giving Tuesday as something that they want to participate in this year. And so what I wanted to do with you today is, based on a lot of research and a lot of data and a lot of crowdfunding and a lot of fundraising experience, trial and error, things that work, things that didn't work over the course of many, many years, to really zoom in on what I believe are 3 real strategies, 3 real approaches that will be the best ever for you on this Giving Tuesday. So let's dive right in and let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about here. First, let's begin with the following. Before we think about anything else around Giving Tuesday, we really want to talk about why it is that people give. Fundamentally, why do people make donations? And the real reason, at its core, fundamentally, the main reason why it is that people give is because somebody asked them. More than any other reason in the world. There was a YouGov study that was done a couple of years ago. Nearly 40% of the people, the highest percentage of people that answered that the reason that they gave to any given charity was because someone had asked them. And too often than not, we have situations where organizations and leaders will put material out with the hope that people will actually donate, but without actually making an ask. So it's important that we appreciate that what we're focused on here ultimately is on making asks, making really good asks, and having people make good donations to our causes. But people also give beyond the fact that someone asked them. They give because people are asking them, obviously. They give to causes that surround people. They give to make an impact. They see something going on in the world. They calculate how much value, how much impact their donation could actually give and make, and then they give based on that. Some people give to solve a problem. It's a problem that's there, it's out there, it's in front of them, they know it, or they learn about it, they're educated about it, someone speaks to them about it, and to solve that problem, they make a donation. And the last reason, which you might think is a little funny, people actually give to be a hero. They might not necessarily know it, they might not necessarily realize it, they might not necessarily think that that's what's actually happening. But on the inside, when we think about the psychology of giving and why it is that people give, part of it is that they want to come to the rescue. They want to slap that cape on, and they want to give, and they want to be a hero, and they want to save the day. And to some degree, we really need to play into that, because a lot of what's going on around Giving Tuesday is about the donor. And it's not necessarily about the organization. It's about the donor, connecting with the donor, engaging with the donor, and getting that donor to click and to actually make a donation. Before we do anything, though, I want to just take a couple of minutes to just talk about who we are as a company. The company that I work for is named CauseMatch. We are a crowdfunding platform that blends cutting-edge technology with world-class fundraising expertise and outstanding customer service. With CauseMatch, you will raise more money from more donors. It's really simple. Our basic mission is to help you raise more, to help you raise better, so that you can do more good. So our role in you doing more good is helping you on the fundraising side, then you do the good part at the other end of that. And how we do that is really specializing in crowdfunding, in particular with peer-to-peer fundraising. We call peer-to-peer fundraising ambassador fundraising. We like the term, and I'll explain why in just a moment. Peer-to-peer fundraising is the idea of somebody coming in who's not a fundraiser necessarily in your organization, who's not someone who even works for you necessarily, but someone who's a supporter, someone who's passionate about your cause, someone who believes deeply in what it is that you're doing, who wants to join you as a volunteer in many cases, or someone who is a staffer, a faculty member, who wants to join you and help you raise money by taking on a personal responsibility, a personal goal of raising a certain amount of money. That is fundamentally peer-to-peer. And basically how we work is we go deep with you as an organization into your data to help you mobilize the grassroots, to really get to that base level of people who can support you, to really get people to appreciate the notion that people give to people, and that by virtue of putting peers in the middle, we get to more people, we get to more donations. By putting goals on the ground, real, tangible, committed goals, getting people to commit to those goals because goals create reality. We know that from every other walk of life. It's also true in fundraising. And then to even go a little bit deeper, to appreciate the value of every single one of these people who's coming on board to be a peer, and every single one of them adds up to a very powerful crowdfunding for your organization. The reason we use the term ambassador more than the word peer, we find that it actually is more, it's more accurate in its description of what's going on here. More often than not, when it's an organization asking a donor that they don't recognize and that they don't know, the donor is not interested. They simply ignore the email. They don't answer that phone call. But when we place someone in between the organization and the donor, someone who can represent the organization, who can speak about what the organization does, who can speak to the mission and the passion and the energy and the impact of an organization to somebody that they know, then that donor is more likely to actually participate and give. And that person is no better term than by being an ambassador. In the same way that it's a representative of a government in a country in another location, so too it is a representative of an organization to a group of donors who potentially have no connection to the organization. So ambassador fundraising, peer-to-peer is at our core, and at our pillars is basically a combination, as I mentioned before, of an expert fundraising team, a donation converting platform that is a donation converting machine, really maximize and optimize for your organizational success, coupled with data-driven marketing and emotional storytelling. By building in and really appreciating how the marketing works and how retargeting works and how donor rescue works and how we can use all the technology that's available to us in the world to really help and stoke and build and expand your fundraising, and of course telling great stories on your behalf. The expert fundraising team, really basic. At the top is a campaign manager, someone who's helping the logistics and the tech side and coordination of your campaign. A fundraising coach like myself who comes in and really helps and build the strategy and the best practice. An expert copywriter storyteller who's going to work with you to develop what is the right story to tell for your campaign. We'll talk more about storytelling as we get to the end. And then of course, technical support all the time to be able to help you whatever it is that you need during the course of your campaign. But let's get specific now about GivingTuesday. And the truth is that I love GivingTuesday. It's a spectacular day. After so many people sort of gorge themselves a little bit on Black Friday or Cyber Monday and have spent a lot of money on a lot of different things, the opportunity comes the following day to appreciate a different side of society and the community and culture, the giving side. And so as you see on the right-hand side of the slide is my post from last year on LinkedIn to all those who work, who are the heroes of the organizations around the world, founders, leaders, board members, supporters, who really live and breathe trying to do good and bring more good into the world. I really believe very much that it is sort of a holiday. I reach out to friends who are leaders in organizations, who work in organizations, having been there and having done that for many years, knowing what that is and a day in and day out grind, and really appreciate them and sort of thank them for the work that they do, because they remind us of the whole sense of goodness in the world. And so sometimes we need to spotlight them and to highlight them and to talk about them and to thank them publicly. And so that's really what this is about. So if you're any of those, and imagine most of you are, leaders, executives, fundraisers, people who on many occasions are working behind the scenes tirelessly for many, many hours, at least know that I appreciate you and I appreciate what you do. And I think it's really important then that when Giving Tuesday as an opportunity comes before us, we really have to think about what it is that we are going to do for our organizations. Or if we've already begun to implement a plan of action, we started executing, what else can we layer in? What else should we be thinking about when we're talking about Giving Tuesday for this year? And the reality of it is because so many people around the world participate in it in some way or another, if you are an organizational leader and you're not sure about participating this year, you have to know that you must do something on Giving Tuesday. You must engage in some way with your base, with your support group, in some way on Giving Tuesday. The data is clear. I think I heard in a webinar presentation like a week ago, something like every country in the world had at least minimally one person who participated in some way, whether that was a social media post or a donation or volunteering in Giving Tuesday in 2020. That's an enormous number of people. And to not engage and to stay silent and to stay quiet or to think that our organization doesn't have to make any noise on that day is a solid mistake and really can hurt you in the short term and on the long term with respect to your organization. So I think the numbers were something like 35 million people participated in some way directly around the world in Giving Tuesday. It's an enormous number of people, and a lot of people beyond that who are participating in making some sort of inroad on that day. But even as it is the case that you must do something on Giving Tuesday, don't let that something simply be your fear of missing out. Fear of missing out is not a strategy. Neither is hope. Hoping that it will work is also not a strategy. So we need to do more than simply have a fear of missing out or fear of letting our competition or someone else who's in our space gain the day. That's not the direction that we should be coming from, a place of confidence, of success, of pride in the work that we do as we go into a Giving Tuesday and the preparation for a Giving Tuesday. So the question then becomes, so how do we approach it and how do we think about it? And I think this is the key question that people need to think about when it is that they're going into Giving Tuesday. What you must do must be in the best interest of your organization and your donors. Let that be the guiding statement. That is to say, that if it's some sort of simply an idea that randomly came into our minds that we want to try, probably not the best approach to Giving Tuesday. We can try and we can innovate. We can look at other organizations and learn from what it is that they did last year and maybe implement something similar. Imitation is a great form of flattery, right? So we can do that, but it has to jive with what is in the best interest of the organization and the donor base. That is the guiding North Star for what it is that we're going to do on Giving Tuesday. And really, truth be told, as a guy who used to fundraise for a lot of years, it's sort of a guiding post or an idea for everything that we're trying to do all the time. What you do must be in the best interest of your organization and your donors. Cannot hide, we must engage. Everyone in the organization is participating in some way. It's a holiday. Treat it as such. Make it special. Make it special for yourself. Make it special for your organization. Make it special for the people who support your organization. Make it special for the beneficiaries of your organization. Let's go a little bit deeper, because the truth is, of course, that Giving Tuesday is not the overall strategy of the organization. It's simply a part of the strategy of the organization. Like marketing, like events, like anything else that it is that you would do, it is simply one of the things that you do along the way. It's another thing that you're doing. So if you've never done it before, this is the year to implement. If you've done it before, this is the year to do it better. And then answer on the little deeper section here another question. How does Giving Tuesday best benefit our overall fundraising plan? I think that goes to our North Star on the prior slide, that we must do something and it must be in the best interest of our organization and our donors. We also have to think about it from the standpoint of fundraising. If we look at it in the prism of fundraising, it shifts how we think about pretty much everything that's going on. And when we think about it that way, certain things that we might have considered doing before, we might not do. Certain programs, certain events, certain PR, certain marketing, certain emails, certain phone calls, we might not make if we're thinking it in the right way. Because how you think about that question is how you think about everything. How you think about the question of how Giving Tuesday best benefits our overall fundraising plan will in fact inform everything else that you do, wherever it may come out with respect to Giving Tuesday. And truth be told, this is a question that I work with a lot of organizational leaders when we're trying to work on coaching for a crowdfunding campaign. But it's a question that should be there all the time. how does this impact overall fundraising plan? Let me give you an example. Last year I was working with an organization, and they wanted to do a live stream during their campaign. Great idea, beautiful. My question was, how is it helping the fundraising? How is it hurting the fundraising? Because when we looked at it through the prism of simply the fundraising, if it's driving traffic to the site, if it's driving more donors, if it's creating excitement and engagement and cultivation potentially, then it's worth something. If it's simply taking people's time because they'd rather run an event or do a live stream than fundraise, then perhaps not. And so how they sort of set it up and put it into the design was everything with respect to anything else that they were going to do. So how you think about that question is how you're going to think about everything that relates to the fundraising, that relates to the organization, specifically around Giving Tuesday. There's really no other way to think at this time. There's no room, no headspace for you any longer to think about anything else other than zooming in here on Giving Tuesday, with one caveat, which we'll talk a lot more about in just a few moments, which is the idea we have the end of year giving along. So when we think about Giving Tuesday and the strategies and the three things that you can do for Giving Tuesday this year that will make it your best ever, the first thing is to appreciate the overall strategy is that you must do it. The question is, what is it that you're going to do? So we have three do it possibilities. Let's say it that way. Do it number one is do it for the next raise. So you're thinking Giving Tuesday, but you're thinking about what's coming in terms of end of year. So you're thinking that way. And this is a preliminary. It's like a soft launch that you're doing towards that end of year, but it's not about money. So the first approach is to do it for the next raise, what we call Giving Thanks Tuesday. The idea of giving thanks, we're going to talk more about that in depth in just a moment. The second one is to do it, but to do it differently. It's a strategic strike to build a match. We're going to talk about matching and matching donors and why that's important and what's valuable. That is also driving towards end of year giving. Very powerful, very valuable, very important, very focused. And the last strategy is do it right now. That, as opposed to saying do it right now, I don't mean today, but do it right. You want to do this right, and you want to do it right, and you want to do it now, and that's plan, go. That you want to get into the space and do something proper here and really work it and really build a very powerful and robust plan for a Giving Tuesday campaign right now, still with an eye towards the end of the year, because everything really right now is about end of year, but really focused on that. So let's dive in on the first one, Giving Thanks Tuesday. The goal of Giving Thanks Tuesday is thinking about end of year. We want to be focused on our end of year giving, because as the calendar turns to November and to December, we know the statistics, we know the data, we know what's happening at the end of the year with respect to our own fundraising and how much of our overall fundraising during the course of the year comes in those last few days. And so we have to be really important here is that we think about it from the standpoint of donor cultivation. That what we're trying to do here is build towards our next ask, to make our next ask even better, even greater, even more powerful, even more successful. And so we're looking at Giving Tuesday as a cultivation event. By practicing gratitude, which is something we probably all of us don't do enough of in general, but something that we could do more of, we can get more people to come back to us and to participate with us over the course of the year, and certainly over the course of the end of year giving. There's a study that I read this week that a 3-minute thank you call boosts 1 year extension by 30%. 3-minute thank you call. So the notion that we can keep people around, that we can connect with people, that we can do a lot here, that we can cultivate and create the relationships that we need and that we want for this coming giving season and then beyond would be through our practicing of gratitude. And by moving people from thanks to friends in what I would call a friend raise, because when you thank people, you make them your friends. That gets them to give more because you thank them more. And so what's happening here is that your eye towards the coming end of the year.
Hey, Bini, it seems your audio has cut out.
Your eye towards the end of the year is focused on the friend raise. And so what's happening now is, how do we do that? How do we do that properly and appropriately at this time of the year? And what we want to sort of think about when we're thanking these people is we want to think about the idea that we're hero building. That when we remind them of what it is that they gave for, or how it is that they gave, or the purpose that they gave it for, the impact that they created, the problem that they solved, they'll come back again and again and again. This takes time to build. It takes time to organize. It'll get you deeper in your cultivation process with your donors, and therefore will get you further when you want to think about how you're going to ask them at the end of the year for that actual donation. So here, we're preemptively striking with a thank you, with the idea that at the end of the year, we're going to ask them some few weeks later for a donation. Because they will remember the thank you, they'll make a donation. The last thing I'll say on this slide, which I think is super important, is if you always think about your donors all the time as monthly givers, you'll thank them more often. You'll thank them more often. So if a person gives you once a year, but you treat that gift as 12 gifts over the course of
Bini, it seems that your audio has cut out. Are you able to hear me?
Great.
Okay. There we go. It's coming in.
How about now? So are we good?
Yes, that's coming in clearly. Thank you.
Okay. Not sure what the problem is, but okay. Okay, let's keep going. So we want to think about them and thank them like monthly givers. This is an organization that my wife and I donate to every year. They treat us like monthly givers. Every year I get a thank you. Every month I get a thank you from them, reminding me of the impact that I did, appreciating me as a giver. Every year we give them more money. It's a really powerful strategy. I feel like $1 million. I barely give them anything every year from my perspective. They treat me and they thank me on a regular basis, and that gratitude goes the extra mile. And I appreciate that they appreciate. And because of that, they're cultivating month over month, year over year to get me to that place to give more money. And the same is true for the people who serve as your ambassadors, who serve as your volunteers. They're heroes also. Anyone who is a peer in your organization who took on a personal goal to raise money on your behalf, who is not a professional fundraiser or a professional nonprofit person at all and did that, is a hero. And we should thank them that way, and we should treat them that way. More often than not, they're raising more than they can give, and they're putting themselves in super uncomfortable space. And so the value of them with respect to simply what they did deserves the gratitude. From a fundraising perspective, again, the data shows that 15% of them would say that they would come back and do it again. Their ROI in the second year is 2x of the first year. So think about that. If we thank them on a regular basis and we remind them and appreciate them in the same way that we would a donor, they're going to come back and do it again. They're going to raise twice as much money. That twice as much money is probably 4 or 5 or 10 times more than they potentially could give you as a donor. We should treat them that way. So take it as an example. Someone comes to you, they can give you $100. The choice is to have them give you $100 or to ask them to raise $1,000 for you. Now you know them. They have a pretty good network of friends and family, work network, colleagues. They're influencers in some degree in the local community. They're worth $1,000 as an ambassador, as a peer. If we treat them like $1,000 donor, if we treat them that way and we operate with that in our minds, they come back and they do it again and they do it again and they do it again. That is how we build culture. That is how we build peers. That's how we build the ambassador group. That's how we build volunteers. That's how we make for a great Giving Thanks Tuesday. So when we want to think about how we go about doing that, we want to thank the people and we want to theme all of the content around the thank you. So everything we're producing around this time of the year for Giving Tuesday is about the thank you. Of course, we're mindful of what's coming at the end of December, the end of year giving, and we want to write it in a way that really appreciates them. So we write it because of you. That's the BOY strategy. Because of you, we were able to impact 1,000 children. Because of you, we fed 1,000 families. Because of you, we're able to provide education to 300 more students. Because of you. When people hear that it's because of them, whoop, they feel better. Their appreciation level goes up. Their sense of pride, their sense of connection goes up. So that's one. Number two, we want to create some sort of a goal that we can measure with respect to this campaign. Whether that's a poll, we want to show how we want to appreciate people via a poll. We want to see shares, so people are sharing some sort of a thank you message that you provided. People are liking the post. That is one level of doing it. Maybe there's some sort of gear that you can send them that they can show. They can take a picture. Maybe there's a ribbon or some sort of a banner that they can put up on their social media that shows that you thanked them. Maybe it's a t-shirt. I was thanked by such and such charity. It doesn't happen enough. We know that it doesn't happen enough because we give charity and we're not thanked enough by the ones that we give it to. And so it requires of us to think bigger and smarter and deeper when we're thinking about how we want to go with an action plan for the big Giving Thanks Tuesday. Then we want to do a thankathon. These are awesome when they work, and they're awesome when they're planned. So we're engaging with our team, they're engaging with our peer-to-peers and our volunteers. We're getting our beneficiaries potentially to make some calls, and all they're doing is thanking people. It's the easiest call they're going to make. They don't even have to ask them for money. They just simply have to get on the phone and thank them for having donated already. But you and I both know that's not easy. So we need to build in a way that we get people to feel good about doing it, which is why when we do it together, we get together in a call center. It's a thankathon call center. It's much more powerful. People are more comfortable. They'll feel like they're part of something. They're not operating in some sort of a vacuum somewhere, and they can go and do what they need to do to make this work. So we want to organize that thankathon. We want to tag them and thank them on social media. People who supported us, maybe even supported us publicly, tag them and thank them on social media, and we want to send them something to share. Strategy number two is to build the match. This is super important. It's a totally different way of thinking about end of year giving, which is why it's here. Because matching works, and we all know that building the match works. Matching funds is a very powerful tool for any campaign that you're doing, whether it's crowdfunding or simply just an ask, quote unquote, just an ask for end of year giving. Matching works, the data is clear. And the reality of it is that more matching money is available to you. We simply have to go and find it. Many, many companies, more than 60% of companies offer matching programs. 33% of donors say that they would give more if matching was applied to their donation. So they would give more if matching was applied to their donation. Let's think about that for a second. We go do the work, find the match, get the match as part of our campaigns. People are going to give more money. So we got more money from the match, and now we're getting more money from our donors. But the reality of it is a very paltry amount is actually matched. Somewhere like 1% of all donations in the US is actually matched. That's disappointing. And another fact, this comes from Double the Donation. Like when we do the research, we look at the data, and we use the data that other people are providing us on their platforms, on their pages. You're sharing this expert research with the rest of the world. It's incumbent upon us to use it. And so what reality of it is that more than 80% said they're more likely to donate if they knew that it was a matching campaign. So let's not make it up, but if it's legit and real and we actually have the match, to really use that match to really make it and bolster our campaigns. Because when we're thinking about matching, we're thinking about maximizing our end of year giving. And so we're going to find, we're going to look inside our base of support currently. We're going to look at corporate partnerships. We're going to look at people who are part of us to see if they can become matchers for what it is that they do. To make this matched, we've got to get organized, super organized. We want to look at our executive leadership to maybe participate soliciting major givers. We want to look at our givers and major givers to actually give now for that, to set the match up. We're thinking about the end of the year, so we're building our match now, and we're looking for corporate gifts. But what's really important here, really important, is this first 2 points. Because so many other organizations are doing so many things around Giving Tuesday, we sometimes get lost in the noise. We sometimes get lost in the distraction of all the other things that are going on with all the other organizations. And so we need to get real clarity and alignment and commitment that this is our go strategy for Giving Tuesday of this year, to build our match and to not let the distractions or the large sums of money that people are raising or the mega events that people are doing around this time of the year, whatever those things may be, and zoom in and focus in and become what's called by Nir Eyal, indistractable, to focus in on what it is that we're doing with our build a match. Because when we know that we do a good job with our build a match, that it's going to pay dividends when the end of year giving comes along. And that's what we're focused on. And so we want to set a clear timeline for task goals and milestones. We want to know what we're trying to hit for. We're looking to figure out, based on the data, internal data, how did we do last year? How did we do the year before? What impacted us over COVID with respect to end of year giving, Giving Tuesday, donors, looking at the list and beginning to approach our matching strategy. And really, really important here is that third to last point, which is what I call the 4 rights of asking. Let's take a minute here and talk about the 4 rights of asking. I even want to come in here, if I may, on the 4 rights of asking. Because what happens is this: the 4 rights of asking is something that I made up, but I think it's really powerful, which is the idea that in every ask, there's an exchange. 4 rights of asking. It's the right person making the right ask at the right time for the right amount. The 4 rights are IGHT, the 4 rights of asking. Every ask, every exchange in fundraising has those 4 elements. And what's most crucial there is the first one. It's the right person, especially when we're going to big givers. We're trying to get bigger givers in our support group, our major donors, to give more, to become leverage match donors for our campaigns and for our organizations. We need to put the right person in front of them every single time. Otherwise, it doesn't work. When the wrong person makes that ask, 99% of the time it doesn't go through. We wonder why. Because they put the wrong person in front of that donor. We could take the same exact ask, the same exact words, and put them in the mouth of the right person who has the relationship, who has the connection, and we're going to get the ask, and we're going to succeed, and we're going to get that gift. So the 4 rights of asking is a fundamental in all of fundraising, and it's super crucial and vital when it is that we're doing major gift solicitation, specifically in a match. And so then we want to craft our story, because we're crafting a specific kind of a story that's focused in on a match campaign strategy. We want to talk to our donors who are participating in this way about their leverage, about their impact, about the role of them as owners and partners and leaders in our organization, so that they want to get in deeper and do more with us. This is a power strategy for going to get match donors. Craft that story. And always, 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 the last point here, keep part 2 of the campaign in mind. We want to always do the math and see how much of match money we're going to raise and how much we're going to match that against for the end of year. We're going to go 1-to-1, every dollar matched. We're going to go 2-to-1. So we're going to raise 2/3 of the money in advance, and we're going to get 1/3 of the money at the end from our campaign. However we're going to do that, we want to always keep in mind the end of year giving, because that's how this works most successfully. So this is a really power strategy for building your match on Giving Tuesday. Secure alignment, avoid distractions, set a clear timeline, decide on the goal and the audience, craft the story, and always keep part 2 in mind. And now the last one. Before we even jump into the last one specifically, which is plan, plan, go, we want to ask ourselves 4 questions. Plan, plan, go is super important because plan, plan, go is the idea that, okay, we're going to go now. We're going to do our campaign now. We're going to do a Giving Tuesday campaign. We're going to raise money now, and then we'll clean up maybe at the end of the year. Not sure that's the best approach to it, but we're going to go hard here to raise money now, and then we're going to go forward. And so what I want you to think about is 4 questions here. Question number 1 is, what's my story? Like we just talked about before. But what's my story for Giving Tuesday specifically? How am I connecting to the concept of giving, the concepts of thanks, which is sort of around in the US because it's around Thanksgiving? How am I connecting? What's my emotional story that I'm going to be telling that day? That's the first question. How you answer these 4 questions will explain everything you're going to do in your campaign. Number 2 is, how's my data? So what's my story? How's my data? Because if you ask about your data before your story, it's sort of backwards. Now I got a storyline. I'm going to do a campaign. I want to think about my data. How many donors am I going to approach? What maybe segment of my donor base am I going to approach for this campaign? Maybe I'm not going to everybody. Maybe I'm not going to my match group, my big givers, or my corporate partners. Maybe I'm just going to my, the bottom givers, the lowest givers in my list. Maybe I'm going to alumni if I'm an alumni-based organization. So how's my data specific to that group? And then back up, how's my story specific to that group of data? Number 3 then is, what's my goal? What's my goal here? How am I calculating that goal? Is it realistic and attainable? Is it over the moon? Is it ridiculous? Is it something that we can shoot for? Is it something that we're going to stretch for? Is it something that's even slightly uncomfortable, perhaps, which is okay? But what's my goal? And what are the inputs that I'm putting into thinking about when I'm thinking about my goal? I'm thinking about some lead gifts, what we call accelerators, people who are going to sort of prime the pump, who are going to get you some juice, get some motivation and energy and momentum going in your campaign. Are we looking at this as a percentage of our overall total for the year? Or what percentage of our overall total for the year is this going to be? Maybe it's just a small amount. Maybe it is sort of the idea that we're going to go hard now at Giving Tuesday, again, thinking about end of year giving, and this is simply just the momentum, the kickstart for our campaign here for the end of year. And the last question is, how are we doing this? Like, what's our approach? Is this all digital? Is it all retargeting? Is it all email? Is it all text message? Is it all phone calls? Maybe we're going to do an event and we're going to do all the fundraising at that event. And by virtue of doing that and getting it that way, we're organized. So these 4 questions are truthfully 4 questions we should be asking ourselves all the time when we're fundraising. But here specifically, again, in a tightly timed type of a campaign for a specific day, Giving Tuesday, however it is that you're going to run it, I want to answer these 4 questions. What's my story? How's my data? What's my goal? And how are we doing this? Because then that lets you understand what's on this slide, which looks a little complicated, but if you follow the numbers, it's actually pretty clear. The first thing I would say to you is this. In a type of a campaign like this, I would recommend using a crowdfunding tool and not your donation page. And the reason is really simple. Donation pages exist on your website, even the nicest ones, they're beautiful. They have zero to do with anyone else. It's almost like you walk into a box, you closed the door, you made your donation, you left, and nobody knew you were there other than the people at the organization. It doesn't get out, it doesn't spread, it doesn't share. But if you're using a crowdfunding portal like ours, then people can see the goal, they can see the donations, they can see the goal, they can see that barometer going up, they can see you trying to reach 80%, 90%. They can see if you use peer-to-peer, who's a peer in this campaign, who's an ambassador, who's hitting their goal, who's not. They can see that video. It creates community, it creates connection, it creates momentum for your organization. So use the crowdfunding tool and not your regular donate page. I really think that's a very powerful thing. Number 2, setting a timeline like you would do anything. I'm going to go with 3 and 4 on your best story in just a moment and ambassador strategy in just a couple of minutes. Number 5, data-driven decisions. Like everything that you're going to do with your audience and your goals, you're going to base it on data. It's not some shot in the dark. You might want to innovate a little bit here. You might want to create something a little bit new, yes, but use the data that others are providing to you for literally nothing online to understand what's the best approach. Number 6, after you've gone the data route, figure out what's the right social media plan. Again, the research is available as to when you should be donating, how you should be when you should be organizing, how you should be organizing, how you should be disseminating information on social media during a Giving Tuesday campaign in the 2 to 3 weeks before, the week of, the day of, how you go about that. It's all available. I'm happy to share tools with you too. Want to reach out and touch and connect with me as well. Decide how you're going live. How are we going to execute this campaign? That's what we talked about before. Are we going to do email? We're going to do phone? We're going to text message everybody? We're just going to do social and digital and ads and retargeting, things like that. Number 8, are we going to rally our people? If we're going to do some sort of an ambassador raise here, some sort of a crowd fund, then maybe we want to get our people together either physically in a singular location, if that's possible where you are, or virtually even, and rally that base to get them energized and get the momentum and get people inspired by what it is that you're doing for your campaign. Number 9, soft launch, potentially, something that you want to start a little bit early, quietly get started early, right? Number 10, similar, because when you go to live hard, you're going to go live hard and do that also a little bit early. The idea being here that you want to get in, because there are so many people participating, you want to start a couple of days early. So if Giving Tuesday is on a Tuesday, right, then you might want to start on Monday. You might want to go hard on Sunday because you might be able to reach more people on Sunday than you might be able to reach them at any other point. And so these are the things that we want to jump in on here. And of course, we want you to thank everybody all the time. And so I wanted to just jump in quickly on 2 more things here. One specifically about storytelling, and then on the ambassador piece, because I don't think I've gone deep enough on that point. The first thing here is when you're telling a story, you want to tell a really good story. You really need to capture the why of your campaign in a way that really connects with people immediately. And point number 1, smart storytelling language, immediately understandable, urgent and or visionary, emotionally driven and authentic. Nothing made up, nothing false. This is true about who you are and what you do. You might have been telling stories for years. You need a new angle. Tell a new angle on that story. Shift it a little bit around. Get the story to where it connects immediately and emotionally with the people that you want it to. That changes when you thought about who the audience is for the campaign. That changes when you went from a thank you approach to a match approach to an ambassador approach to a focus on alumni. All those things change the manner in which that story is going to be told. It can even be the same story, but you're simply shifting gears a little bit in how you want to tell it. The second thing is you want to be really specific in your ask. If there's ambiguity there at all, it doesn't work. If people don't see what it is you're asking them to do, it doesn't connect, it doesn't resonate, people don't give. And number 3 here is draw that line. Draw the line between the problem, the solution, and the call to action. What problem are people solving? What's the solution to that problem? And what are you asking them to do? If people can draw that line straight and simple and easy, they're more than likely to get in and support what it is that you're doing. But they need a problem to solve. If there's no problem there, if you're simply just shouting out all the amazing things that you do, so then the donor doesn't feel like there's space for them to be the hero, to jump in and to participate, to jump in and do what they need to do when they put their cape on to help you and save your people, quote unquote. And so the idea here is to show a problem in your why, show the solution in your why, and show that call to action in your why. So the donor feels that connection, feels and sees his or her space in your story, in your call to action, and can jump in and then pursue it and help you out. And of course, more than anything else, is consistency in the messaging. We don't want members of our team telling different stories. We don't want social media having different stories about us. We want to focus and zoom in on that one story. That's our story for this year. Are there others? Yes, absolutely. But more than anything else, we want to tell a singular story for who we are. And the number 2 strategy here that I want to zoom in a little bit on is the ambassador piece, which I mentioned at the beginning, mentioned in the middle, I'm mentioning it now. Because what happens when you do the ambassador approach is that you're bringing in the power of the crowd inside the organization. And by virtue of bringing them inside the organization, you're actually able to then break out of the organization, because as I mentioned at the beginning, they represent you everywhere. And by virtue of doing this kind of work, 1, you get deeper within your base. You learn a lot about the people who support you. You learn a lot about the people and how they can volunteer to help you. It's really valuable for this Giving Tuesday and then beyond. There's no reason why the results or the data that comes out of your Giving Tuesday doesn't have impact later on. It should always have that kind of impact later on. So we want to get deeper within our base by inviting people in to be ambassadors with us and raising money on our behalf and making phone calls on our behalf and putting signs up on the street on our behalf, or putting up flyers, or running or riding a bike or walking in the streets or coming to a fair. We're getting deeper with our people, and getting deeper has them give more. And then beyond that, you're getting beyond your base. The fastest way, I think, and that based on the data, to grow your donor base on Giving Tuesday, which is what a lot of organizations are focused in on, is getting new donors here, is through crowdfunding. So even if the goals are small, if your ambassadors are reaching out to people and getting them in, then you've gotten them in. They've made that first donation. Now the work begins in cultivating and developing and showing why there's value in them staying with your organization. Sure, that's always true. But how do you normally get people in? So here, friends are bringing in their friends, and friends are bringing in their families and their business networks through the prism of crowdfunding, and you're acquiring potentially dozens, if not hundreds, or maybe even thousands of donors in a way that you never did before. So you're not only getting deeper with your base, you're getting beyond your base into a space where people are always thinking about right now, which is donor acquisition. The second point is people asking people, as we mentioned before, it's the number one reason why people give. And so when it's their friends and family, they're more likely to give. Certainly if it's the organization asking, they're less likely to give. They don't know you, they're not connected to you, they're not part of you. So they really want to get to the people who are asking. Number three here with ambassadors makes and forces you to personalize the ask. By virtue of having it come through the voice of the ambassador, so you're connecting the ask to the ambassador, not the institution. The person hearing it, the friend or family member who gets the text message, who gets the WhatsApp message. If you're not using WhatsApp in these kinds of campaigns, you're missing out on perhaps the most powerful tech tool that's available, that people read 99% of their WhatsApp messages. You should get in there. But you're connecting the ask with your ambassador, not the institution. You are humanizing the ask, because the ask is now coming from a leader, a parent, an alum, a faculty member, a beneficiary. It's a human being. It's not a web page. It's not a storyline just simply on a page. It's coming from a person to another person. And the other, and perhaps the last reason, which is a much deeper dive philosophically about this, is it helps you change the language around giving within your organization. In a lot of cases, the organizations, more often than not, they view themselves transactionally. So if it's school, if you're a school or you have an alumni base, a lot of the times people are paying tuition to participate in your programs. So they feel very much like they're members. And so when they're members, they simply are looking to get stuff. And when that relationship ends, it's no longer transactional or consumer based, they're gone. But if we view them as partners, we talk about them as family members, then the whole thing changes. And if that's the way we sort of talk about fundraising in general, we talk about the nature of our relationships with our donors in general, then we move from membering to partnering, from membering to family. And when we do that, we're able to go, along with what we said before, deeper within the base, deeper beyond the base. We get to more donations. People sense the culture that's been created. They sense the emotion and the passion and the belief and the feeling around the organization, and they see it on the faces and in the writing and the outreach and the volunteering of people who become ambassadors for the organization. So what it is that we covered today, and we'll open it up to questions here if there are any, I'm happy to answer all of them, is the idea that with respect to Giving Tuesday, there's no reason to try everything, but there's every reason to do something, and to do something specific here for your organization this year. And to focus in on the three things based on the data, and based in the research, based in what's going on, is, it's not showing that. Made a mistake there, sorry. Is you get the sense that we can do something very specific, very targeted, very smart for our organization. That's what's the most important thing, is to do what's best for your organization here. To zoom in and to zero in on what's the right thing for us this year. We've tried other things in the past. We want to really focus in on what we can focus in on for us this year, and that's where we really want to be. That's really what we want to do. That's really where we want our organization to go, because we're focused, we're targeted, we're zoomed in, we're not distracted. We're focused in on ambassadors, potentially. We're focused in on good storytelling. We're focused in on matching, and we're focused in on gratitude and thanking people. By choosing one of those strategies, an amazing thing for your organization. The possibility of blending them, doing two things at the same time, also quite possible. The sense that maybe part of your audience is going to be focused on thanking. And at the same time that group of volunteers or staffers are working on the thank you, you, the leader, and maybe your board members are focused on gaining a match. And so you're able to blend two of the good strategies that we mentioned today. I don't know that you can blend all three, but potentially mixing two of them together. And so there, I think, is based on the data and based on the research and based on the evidence, the best things that you can do to make this your best Giving Tuesday. If there are questions, by all means, reach out to us, contact@CauseMatch.com. The phone number is there. Definitely check out the blog.CauseMatch.com, because there are additional materials, some that I've shared and some that other members of our team have shared with respect to Giving Tuesday, that are very much worthwhile and very much can help you also along the way. I know there's a video that I did that relates to timetable and tasks, really understanding the calendar as you go into this. Any of those things really help you. And reach out to us at CauseMatch.com to learn more about crowdfunding, to learn more specifically about the crowdfunding, the style that we do, because we're here to help you raise more so that you can do more good. Tori, I'll take any questions now if you have.
All right, great. Thank you for all that wonderful content. We have someone asking for a brief clarification, asking if you could repeat the 4 rights of asking.
Yeah, sure. The 4 rights of asking are the right person making the right ask at the right time for the right amount. Those are the 4 rights of asking. The right person making the right ask at the right time for the right amount. The right ask, the right amount are different, because the right ask is simply the why. It's really more the why of the ask. The amount is the end, is exactly what you're asking them to do. So that could be an amount, that could be them volunteering, that could be them getting to participate with you, that could be them getting to be an honoree or jumping in on something else that's going on around them. Whatever that may be, really just gets that there. So it's the right person making the right ask at the right time for the right amount. And the reality of it is that every time you have an exchange, those 4 elements are there. And if you simply think about it, sort of twisting each one each time, when you lock them all in and you get them right, you get the best asks that you're ever going to make as an organization. And more often than not, when we don't perform to the level that we want, so then that one of those things is off. So the timing could be off. I'll tell you a story. I had a donor that I reached out to many years ago. It would seem very clear that he was going to make a significant gift to the organization I was working at the time. And then I went to see him at his home, and he was under the weather. And he made a gift. The timing was off. He just wasn't there physically. He wasn't ready to make the gift. He just wasn't. So he didn't make a donation at the time. I was shocked, but it happened. So it's that mix of those 4 elements that really do work beautifully. And when they're synchronized and they're working blended beautifully together, it can be a beautiful thing.
Great, thank you. This next question was also addressed earlier, but I want to make sure that it gets answered and they feel, comfortable with it. So it's asking, how do we balance Giving Tuesday and year-end giving campaigns? Should we target donors who give at a lower level for Giving Tuesday?
Yeah, it's a point worth repeating for sure. I think that one way to split it is to target a sector of your audience on Giving Tuesday. So differently than what I focused on today, that's the best strategy for your organization. You might cut it at, let's say it's $100. We're going to go for all of our low-end givers on Giving Tuesday, because that's a day when a lot of the gifts that are going on are smaller donations. And so we're going to go after that group we're going to leave our larger donors for end of year, that definitely can work. It's a question more often than not about what's best for your organization at that time. And so what I would also recommend, though, because everyone is so connected, you wouldn't want one of your larger donors wondering why they were left out. And so what I always recommend people do is inform without asking. It's a very basic rule here. But if you're going to target one specific segment of your audience, let everybody else know that they're not being targeted for a specific reason, right? Privately. So the larger donors, you'll take them out of the list. One, they won't be in the email list for that. You might let them know campaigns going on Giving Tuesday, just not asking you. And then you're targeting them at the end of the calendar year. So really that mix of what's best for our organization, can we split? You certainly can split, but be mindful of the other group that's not part of it, that as to why. One really great way to split it up, depending on your organization, is if you're an alumni-based organization, just as an example, you can do Giving Tuesday as a peer-to-peer exclusively with your alumni. Then everybody understands that this was when we did our peer-to-peer campaign, was on Giving Tuesday, and so everyone understands why they weren't asked to participate. They're not an alum. And so that's an easy split, because then whoever they're reaching are potentially all new donors, and the group that is your actual base will really immediately understand that you've split it out for a reason.
Great, thank you. This next question asks, how much do you see COVID continuing or not continuing to affect Giving Tuesday donations? Is talking about COVID with respect to donating still relevant?
It's only relevant if it's relevant to you and your organization. To simply use it as a trick or a tool for sympathy or empathy is beyond, it's inauthentic, and it's probably bad form. So it certainly has its impact in certain parts of the world, certainly where it's still rampant and still raging, and vaccines aren't there and people are still really suffering in a lot of ways. Certainly the case. If you're in a certain environment in terms of the type of organization that you work in, let's say you do food, or you provide meals to people, or you're helping people who are out of work, that's still an issue. So that can still be part of it. But you want to create the problem sort of forward, and how anyone who's the donor is helping you into the future, and not about what was. What was happened. We cannot do anything about what happened. We can only do something about what's going to happen in the future. And that's where the donor senses that it's being, quote unquote, by virtue of you creating a storyline and a vision for the why of a campaign that's a problem solution call to action where they see themselves fitting in. So COVID fits where it fits, and if it doesn't and you've moved past it, amazing. And if you got through it, sort of untarnished or in some way, even better. But we want our storylines for campaigns really to be future focused.
Great, thank you so much. If anyone else has questions, please throw them into the chat now. Or, if afterwards you have a question, feel free to reach out to us at the Nonprofit Learning Lab or to Bini and CauseMatch directly. I'm sure they'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely.
It's not looking like I have anything else. So thank you so much, Bini. I'm going to say this workshop has come to an official close. All the materials and recordings will be made available on our website for everyone. So take a look there within the next 24 hours and we'll have all those things uploaded. Thank you so much for participating in the 3 things to make this Giving Tuesday your best ever. And again, thank you, Bini, for educating our community.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It was an honor and a pleasure. Have a great day.
You too.